Hi, sixth graders. This lesson is on integers and absolute values, so make sure you label the top of your page correctly with integers and absolute value, and we're just starting Unit 6, so you might want to put Unit 6 at the top so you know that this part of your notebook is now going to be Unit 6. Our learning targets are being able to use integers to describe situations and being able to determine the absolute value of a number or expression. So just to think about a few things, how do we differentiate between what we have and do not have for money? So if we have money, we're positive. If we owe someone money or we don't have money, then we are in the negative or at zero. How do you describe your location when scuba diving? So scuba diving, you're below sea level, so that's going to be a negative amount of feet. And mountain climbing, you're way above, you're pretty high, so that's going to be positive. How do you know who is ahead in the sport of golf? So if you have watched golf, you know that, or if you know anything about golf, the scores can be positive or negative. The lower the score, the better that you're doing. How do all these examples, or what do all of these examples have in common in terms of math and numbers? So they all have to do with integers, which are positive and negative numbers. So integers is the set of, so this word is a very, very important word for the unit, considering the unit is called our integers unit. So integers is how you say it, integer. Write that down. And this is the set of positive, negative, so positive and negative whole numbers and zero. Negative integers are less than zero. They're written with a negative sign or minus sign. Positive integers are greater than zero. They are written with or without a positive sign. So if we have -3 and then +3, as you know, we would just write as 3. 0 is neither negative or positive, right in the middle. It's not considered either one, but it is still considered an integer. Write an integer for each situation. An average temperature of 5 degrees below normal, so below normal would mean that we would write it as -5 degrees. An average rainfall of 5 inches above normal would mean 5 degrees. So -5 for below normal, +5 for above normal. You try these. 6 degrees above normal would be 6 degrees. 2 inches below normal would be -2 inches. Notice that I have the label with. The little dot is degrees or inches, then we include. Graphing integers on a number line. So we want to graph the set of integers 4, -6, 0. These little brackets right here mean that it is including a set. So that's why we say a set of integers, because this is a set of numbers because it's included inside the brackets. So first we would draw a number line. Notice that we have 0 right in the middle here. And then I just went out till 10 and to -10. We just have like a little dash for each whole number. So 1, we don't need to label them all. We can see that they just labeled it by 2's. But I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then I have my negatives on the left side of the 0. So 4, we can see, is right here. -6, we can see, is over here. And then 0, obviously, is right in the middle. Graph each set. So you draw a just really quick number line. It doesn't need to be fancy. You can just do one number line for both of these questions and plot those points. So if we have -2 is right here, 8 is right here, and then -7 is right here. So notice we're just counting backwards, starting at 0, -1, -2, -3, so counting backwards instead of going forwards the other way. And then -4 would be here, 10 would be here, and +7 would be here. So you just have to make sure, oops, and I forgot -3, which would be right here. Making sure that you're looking at the sign that goes with it. So this negative sign would obviously go with the 4. This negative sign goes with the 3. There's nothing here, so that means that is positive. So negative, positive, negative, positive. Absolute value is another word that I want you to write down. Absolute value of a number is the distance between the number and 0 on a number line. So if we look here, we can see 0. We know that 5, the number 5, is 5 units away from 0, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We also know that -5 is 5 units away from 0. So absolute value is just talking about how far away it is from 0. In order for a number to be a distance away from 0, it has to be a positive amount away, even if it's a negative number, if that makes sense to you. So this is how we write absolute value. We write the 2 straight lines around the number. So for this right here, I would say the absolute value of -5 is 5. Here I would say the absolute value of 5 is 5. So absolute value, something you also want to add to your definition, is always positive. Always positive. So the absolute value can be, like the absolute value, as you can see, of -5 and 5 are both 5 because they're each 5 spots away. The absolute value of -4, if I'm at 4, I can see that it's 1, 2, 3, 4 spots away. It's basically just taking the number and making it positive. And again, the absolute value of +4 would still be 4. The absolute value bars are considered to be a grouping symbol. When evaluating this right here, we evaluate the absolute value first before subtracting. So I'm going to take the absolute value of -5, which I know is 5, the absolute value of 2, which is 2, then I subtract and I get 3. So we do absolute value first, which is kind of like the order of operations. It's not parentheses, but it would come in that order, and then we subtract. Okay, you try these on your own, come back and check. So the absolute value of 8 would just be 8. It's not the opposite, remember, it's just the positive number of that, whatever's inside the absolute value. Here, I'm going to do my absolute value first, so I have 2 plus 3, because the absolute value of -3 is 3. Then I add, and I get 5. Here, the absolute value of -6 is 6, and then I keep the rest, -5, so I get 1. Remember, the absolute value of a negative number is positive. The absolute value of a positive number is also positive. And that is all that I have for this topic. So one thing to remember before I stop is that these lines, so 11 was kind of a bad example, but these lines, we want to make sure that they are distinguished between, so that we know that it's absolute value, instead of doing a 3 and then going like this, and then that kind of looks like 131. So make sure your absolute value lines represent what they're supposed to be instead of making it look like a number. And we know that that's going to be 3. All right, that is all I have. Have a good night. So when we start looking at a number line, we want to think about the organization of the number line and what directions we go when the numbers get larger and when the numbers get smaller. So here's 0 right here. And when we go to the left, we can see that that is negative and the numbers are getting smaller. When we go to the right, obviously the numbers are getting bigger because they are positive. But we can see that if we're going to the right, we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so forth. Going to the left, we're also counting, but we're counting down, but it's going backwards. So here we're reading left to right, and it's going in order. Here, this way to the left, it's going backwards. So it'd be -1, -2, -3, -4. So -4 is less than -2 because we know the absolute value of -4 is greater than when the absolute value of -2, meaning it's further away from 0, but we're also going backwards. So that's the confusing part of positives and negatives. When it's negative, it's actually going to be less than, like if we have two numbers that are negative, -10 and -5, -10 is going to be less than -5, but obviously if we have 5 and 10, then 5 is less than 10. So we have to think of it differently if it's positive or negative. So let's compare some integers. So we want to replace the little gray circle with less than or negative to make different sentences true. So if we have -5 and -3, let's look on our number line. We have -5 here, -3 here. We know that -5 is less than -3 because it's further down. We're going further away from 0. So -5 we would write is less than, because remember the opening of the symbol needs to be facing the bigger number. You try these ones really quick and then come back, pause, and then come back and check. But -8 would be less than -4. 5 would be greater than -1. And -10 would be greater than -13, because you'd come to -10 first if you're counting backwards from 0, and then you would get to -13. And then last thing we're going to do in this video is putting the integers in order from least to greatest. So you can use a number line if you have a group of numbers, 0, -2, -4, -3. I could just easily put them on my number line. So 0, -2, -4, and then +3. And now it's very easily organized and laid out. I can see that this one is going to be my least, this one is going to be my greatest. So I would go -4, -2, 0, 3. If we look at our next batch of numbers, if I don't want to draw a number line every time and put it on my number line, I see I have -7, -9, 11, 14, and -3. Well, I first of all know that my negatives are going to be less than my positives, obviously. So I'm just going to look at my negatives, and then the higher number with a negative sign would be the lowest. So -9, and then -7, -3, then 11, then 14. You try these quick, pause, do them in your notebook, come back and check. For this one, 2, -1, 5, -8, we would have -8, -1, 2, 5. And then here we would have -7, -5, 0, 2, and 3. And that's all I have for you for absolute value and comparing and ordering integers. Make sure you keep your notes in a safe place and use them while you practice throughout this unit. Have a great day.